business sentiment has changed dramatically after the new government has taken over. But to talk more about it and the way forward with us, Mr. Ajit Gulabchand. Thanks so much, sir, for sparing time to talk to NDTV. How's the overall corporate India mood looking like right now?
I think the corporate India is upbeat. It is very optimistic. The new government has brought in a huge optimism in it, a certain sense of hope. To put it differently, you needed 3 alarms to get up in the morning a few months ago.
Okay.
Now you don't need an alarm to get up in the morning. So you have a situation where the new government has created the environment and atmosphere where people feel all the things that business needs to invest and to show entrepreneurship will happen.
So the climate has been created, the right environment has been created, but are people loosening their purse strings? Are investments actually taking place on the ground?
See, this is where, you must remember, when this government began in June, barely 4 months ago, getting its own act together to start acting needed a minimum of a month. After that, when they started, they have made the world and Indians aware that India is back on the agenda for thinking about investment.
Right.
That has been achieved quite brilliantly. However, the policies of the last government have caused so much, the Sonia government has caused so much harm, that there is a lot of things cluttering the ground on which we are all treading. And I think the government is busy trying to clean that up.
So you're saying undoing the entire mess will take a long time?
Not only undoing, all the consequences of those policies resulted in a lot of debris, you know.
And we heard the finance minister say the same thing, that the pit is very deep. It will take a long time.
These are different ways of saying the same thing.
Right.
And that is going to take some time to repair because it has caused cash flow problems for people. There is a demand problem on the other side. Even the supply side improvements are very poor. So there is, on the street, the pain continues.
You're saying the pain continues on the street. So, yes. so while the environment has changed, the pain hasn't gone away just yet.
And yes, because it's because it can't change overnight. For example, all the monies that are locked up, there can't be just one decree that pay up in one day.
Right.
You have to find solutions that are more generic and go by certain case by case sometimes and find the answers. Like take the environment ministry.
Yes, I was about to come to that.
Which did the biggest damage under Jairam Ramesh and continued very ably by his successor. But the fact is that even now, in declogging all those environmental clearances that were withheld or were blocked midway, I think they have to declog, and that they are moving with the best possible
But is there a change there? Is there a change there in terms of thinking, in terms of mindset? Because the whole environment versus development debate continues.
They have realized that this has to go hand in hand.
Right.
We can't just take environment and say that is the only important thing in the world. After all, that environment is meant for people.
Sure.
Those people need jobs as well.
Sure.
So this is, I think, understood very clearly by this government. And I think even the bureaucracy in the previous government had understood it. It's only the ministers and the policy makers and the National Advisory Council that didn't understand it.
Right.
I think even the Prime Minister understood it.
Right.
However, if you want to go forward, it's one thing to declog the existing pipeline. That it is stuck, let's get the projects going.
Right.
Like they did a wonderful job when the Supreme Court declared all those mines illegal. In the shortest possible time, they came up with an ordinance.
Right.
Found a more transparent method of quickly restarting.
So that kind of decision making is needed where you resolve issues.
Plus they introduce a level of reform by saying, and even those who are not actual users will be allowed to take mining licenses.
But there is a bit of concern, because while the government has said that there is an enabling provision in the coal ordinance, they have very clearly at the same time stated, no, we are not privatizing, no, we are not denationalizing.
No, please, you must understand, privatization is taking Coal India and privatizing it and allowing new people to come into mining are two different
But they have not given timelines even there.
So
the idea right now is it's only captive use.
The idea, no, they have very clearly said two things. First, the whole thing is stopped. A large capacity that has been created for generating power is at a standstill.
Right.
They have to get it going.
Right.
So that is on the way with those e-auctions.
E-auction.
And they've added the feature that even those who are not actual users would be allowed to mine. Now, when and how they do it, that will need a procedure. It's not just taking these mines and putting them on the auction. The whole procedure for giving mining concessions will have to be drawn up. But they have put that down.
Right.
So the pathway is clear. Similarly, in environment, while you declog quickly, which is what you do because you're stuck them, all these projects are stuck, it's necessary to set up committees that will develop objective and measurable norms for environment protection.
Right.
And these must be known to everybody. So it is only where you want a change, where you cannot meet the standard laid down, that there is a discussion.
Otherwise, it should just go through. They should have a green signal.
It should be through a consultative process with scientists, with industry, with experts, as well as with civil society, which may have expressed some concerns.
Right.
So it has to be this effort, like they do it very elegantly in Europe.
Yes.
You've seen the engine emission norms have moved from Euro 1
All
to Euro 6.
stakeholders are come
and
together.
when they find it's too strict, they say either give more time or they relax it. There are various ways of dealing with it. Ultimately, look at it. The whole of Europe, they discovered environment damage. They discovered the idea of environment protection.
But then the argument being
They
made out
created-
always is that developing countries can't have the same benchmarks and yardsticks as the developed
but
countries when we
did
talk
have
about
ministers
environmental
that went
concern.
on a rampage,
Right.
saying that as though they invented environment protection and stopped everything inside. For 25, 30 years, the world, the rest of the advanced world is engaged in improving the environment. Without closing down anything, they have improved their water, soil, air. And we have closed down everything and our rivers continue to be filthy.
Right.
Our cities continue to be filled with garbage. So what have we improved? The
Right.
pollution levels haven't come down and we've closed down half the project.
Smart cities, it's a concept that Mr. Modi has focused on. He's talking about 100 smart cities. It's an area clearly that HCC has been focusing on. You've pioneered Lavasa. Share with us whether your vision and that of the Prime Minister in any way meet and how can he take it forward to ensure it's a success?
See, the word smart city is what the Prime Minister used.
Right.
The idea of such new cities go by various nomenclatures in various seminars and various institutions created to promote them. Some call it future cities, some say future of urbanization,
Right.
somebody says new cities, digital cities, e-cities.
All sorts of names,
So
but they all lead
so
to
never
the same
mind.
thing. Right.
In India now for us that word is smart.
Smart cities, yes.
Now this smart city, there is no real definition of the smart city. Agreed upon, and this is the only thing called smart city. So,
Right.
and just as well it is vague. So that different ideas can come and different concepts of how to make a city smart.
Right.
And maybe what we need is key points that a smart city must have. And anybody who meets 25 to 30% of the points can claim that it is smartened up the city.
Okay.
Existing or brand new.
Right.
You know,
But
And with the
looking
use
at the current structure, which of the two models do you think will work better? Brand new,
no,
perhaps the way
see,
you went,
brand-
or
see,
existing, turning
we will-
existing
we will
cities
have
into
to do
smart
both.
cities? Okay.
See, you have to build new cities.
Right.
You'll have to build new neighborhoods to cities, suburbs. You'll have to improve the kasbahs into proper small cities or towns. So it has to be at all fronts, and some very new ones have to be created.
Sure.
But the fact is that they have to be livable, and they must work well, and this is where the word smart comes in.
Right.
And then you can use technology, whether it's information technology or simply improved sewage treatment. For example, there are sewage treatment plants that require 40 acres of land, ancient ones. You can do the same treatment now, the same volume of sewage or more in 2 acres. So
Right.
there are several ways technology, not just information technology, but all forms of technology can be used to smarten up a city to provide services to its citizens and create a ease of living in that city and make it livable. So I think that is the idea, that if you want to leapfrog in the area of urbanization, and what is extraordinary when you use the word smart city, don't forget, just till about 6 months ago we were discussing, after 65 years in this country, the village was the romantic idea. And everything was to be centered around only the village. And the city was some kind of a evil that you had to accept because it existed.
Right.
And we always denigrated it, even patronized it to the extent that we created a Jawaharlal Nehru urban renewal plan,
Right.
where you gave few little monies for different cities to improve some of their infrastructure.
But that has changed.
So that has
dramatically.
changed.
Right.
We have recognized that urbanization is here to stay.
Right.
That
It needs to be accelerated.
Urbanization is necessary.
Right.
Urbanization is good because
Right.
it creates jobs, it creates it creates wealth, and these are the ideas. So within this government coming to office, we have changed our
The mindset
entire paradigm
and the
to
thinking.
move towards this. And we are now talking about, we're not just talking about, since we're doing it now, we want to leapfrog to even make it smart. Right
So
away.
what's your message to the Prime Minister, someone who's moved forward in this direction already, who's shown the way in terms of going ahead and developing a new city entirely?
Yeah.
What's your message to him to ensure that he can turn this into a huge success?
Please do it very quickly.
Okay.
As fast as you can. We are with him.
Okay. Talking about other initiatives, we've got FDI in construction that obviously has been as a big positive. It has impacted companies positively. The impact of that is showing up in the stock markets as well. Real estate, infrastructure, construction stocks doing extremely well. It's being seen as an important move. Share with us how critical was it for the government to make those changes and to ease up norms in FDI and construction?
Please understand, this government has announced not only the infrastructure that India needs to build. Please appreciate, we have to create 300 million new jobs in the next 20 years. That's 15 million jobs a year. These are kids that are already born. They'll come into the job marketplace, or job places have to be created for them.
Right.
United States of America employs 135 million people and is the largest economy in the world. So if you want to create 300 million jobs, you'll need 2 American-sized economies to be created in the next 20 years. So you can see the enormity, the humongous amount of job that you have to do do it, which requires huge investment, both domestic and foreign. Besides, you must understand that there's also a promise that we will make sure that by a certain date everybody will have a home. So there's housing to be built.
Right.
So every area in which housing will be built, infrastructure will be built, investment will come, will have to be improved.
Right.
One of these are just the steps. Everything can't be done in one big bang reform, as Mr. Jaitley put it. What is really required is a continuous reform at one end, and then cleaning up the method of doing things, processes which are clogged.
Is the government moving forward on both the accounts?
I think they're moving a little faster on reform.
Okay.
Though
And
they
small
have not
doses of
announced
it.
anything.
Yeah. Right.
But see, critical reform have to be critical.
Right.
They need not be big bang.
Yeah, incremental, and that's important.
No, not incremental.
Right.
They may be small but significant.
Okay. Okay.
Incremental is not necessarily a reform.
A reform, yeah, that's more like just taking it forward.
It's a little elastic, a little
Right.
stretch. But the point is that they are making that, and they're in the period, but they're trying to clean up. Like they have to revise the Companies Act. They have to revise the Land Acquisition Act.
Yes.
They have to then usher in the GST, because it's not something new. It's not there in place today, but they have to.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of them, but what according to you will be the single biggest positive trigger that this government can give to the economy? GST, land acquisition, labor reforms, what is that one which we may not term as big bang, but will have a big bang impact at least?
I would not fall into the trap of saying which one will create the biggest.
They have
I
to
think
move
they
forward
all
a
have
lot.
to happen.
Okay.
If you do GST and your company law remains as horrendous as it is now, causing all kinds of pain, nothing will happen, because people have to invest here.
But that brings me to the larger question of the expectation of India Inc., the expectation of people, of the so-called Achhe Din. Achhe Din for the industry, Achhe Din for the people. Are we putting ourselves up for certain disappointment because we may not see action on all fronts? The wish list is a bit too long.
See, first of all, Achhe Din means what? There are 2-3 features to it. One is where prosperity will arrive.
Right.
Prosperity comes at the end of development,
Right.
not during it. Bits of it during it, but basically it comes at the end. So anybody who feels that Achhe Din should come at the beginning of this process is very difficult.
Right.
So Achedin at the beginning of the process is, do we have a government that actually is embarked on doing it? Is it really trying to create the atmosphere for investment so that this can happen? Is it creating ease of business? Is it making it easy for people to get educated so that they can be capable of taking those jobs? I think that process itself and that commitment with which a government is moving also brings an element of Achedin, because then that is happening. You know, we were despondent, we were in despair 6-8 months ago. Then nothing is happening and the government is doing nothing and is doing more of the folly that it did.
Right.
And therefore there was despair.
Right.
So the very fact that there is no despair, there is pain, yet there is hope,
Right.
tells you that yes. So this is how it will happen.
Okay. We've talked about the government and what it can do, but what about the RBI? The industry has time and again been making a case for going ahead and announcing a rate cut, possibly saying inflation is trending downwards. Do you think the time has come now for the governor to focus on growth more than inflation?
As I have still not understood why our interest rates need to be high.
To control inflation, simple answer.
That's very simplistic. It's
Right.
too simple an answer.
Right.
First
but
of
that's
all,
the task of monetary policy, and that's what RBI says its duty
Yeah,
is
but
to
it is
control
duty.
prices.
We do not know what their inflation target is, what composes inflation, as the CLSA economist has very clearly said, that
Right.
purely consumer prices is not inflation.
Right.
The whole credit environment has to be taken into account. And so inflation here is not that high.
Right, and especially now with food
The
prices
second
coming
is
down drastically.
Apart from that, the food prices are administered prices in this country,
Right.
and therefore not under the control.
Right.
So far, all the oil prices were controlled by the government.
Now
With
we have
such a
two
large
major
chunk
commodities.
controlled by the government, what interest rates are going to do to change consumption patterns? So consumption patterns change, and then almost half the country is outside the banking system. So what we are discussing, we are not getting a convincing argument that neither is the data so very trustworthy to say, yes, this is the inflation, but we'll go by what is there. So we need a little more clear, and again here, more objective and measurable ways by which RBI will decide the interest rate.
Confidence is back as far as India Inc. goes, but a number of steps that you've outlined, those clearly need to be taken to
Yes,
ensure
yes.
that the investment cycle is kick-started once again. Thank you, sir. Pleasure
That's
to talk
right.
to you.
Thank you.